example 4, we are going to evaluate. And although, relatively speaking, this is extremely easy, it is also going to be extremely easy for you to make a ton of mistakes, which tends to make this as an extremely easy question that is sometimes extremely hard, because it is so easy to make mistakes. First of all, absolute values you can only change to positive once you have a single number in there. So we can't get rid of them early unless we have a single number in there. The other thing that absolute values sort of make things a little bit more difficult is because unlike brackets, which are bent, they're straight up and down. So sometimes you get confused where one starts and one stops. So for example, a student does the following in this question. And I want you, this is wrong, do not write this down. But I'm going to do something wrong, and I want you to see if you can tell where this is wrong. In fact, I'm going to write it in red, so if you weren't listening at the beginning, do not write this down. This is wrong, that's why it's in red. So I've got negative 26 plus 13, absolute value of 2 is plus 2, and then I have a 10 minus 16. So what I did is I saw this absolute value of 2, and I made it a positive 2. This is absolutely wrong. Maybe you can see that as wrong. But what is sometimes tricky with absolute value bars, and sometimes I take out a highlighter or a different color pen before I even start them, is I'm going to color this first bar in green. When do I get my next bar is here. That's like one set of brackets. Then in purple, I hit another absolute value bar. That goes with this one there. The green absolute value is separate from the purple absolute value. As you see in the mistake that I did the number in the between, but that was with the green one and the purple one. That actually isn't its own absolute value bars. Could get a little bit confusing that way. So instead, we have to do our order of operations, and we think of absolute value bars as brackets. So I need to do what's inside the green brackets as a first thing, and what's inside the purple absolute values. I would still have this minus 2. And this minus 2, when you have something beside a bracket, do you remember when it's touching like that, that technically there's a multiplication there, even though we can't see? Right? Some things that are going to help you in absolute values is that when you get rid of the absolute values, temporarily just put brackets there. So I'll show you what I mean by that. First of all, minus 26 plus 13 is negative 13. And 10 minus 16 is minus 6. Do you see that you now have one number inside the green absolute values? The green absolute values are saying, how far is negative 13 away from 0? It makes things positive. But what I'm going to do is whenever I get rid of the absolute value bars, in order to hold numbers in the right spot and to make less mistakes, I'm going to replace it with a bracket. So absolute value of negative 13 is 13. I still have minus 2, and then the absolute value of negative 6, put brackets, is 6. If I put brackets there, it's going to be obvious that that multiplication is still there. If you don't write the brackets, some people write minus 26 because they just wrote the 2 and the 6 and now they have a new number. That can cause you problems. So none of the arithmetic is hard. You're going to add and subtract and multiply little numbers. It's going to be relatively easy. But notation can cause you problems, which makes these questions a little tricky. Now, order of operations, what should I do next? I should do the 2 times the 6, right? So I'm going to get 13 minus 12, and now I can subtract, and I get a final answer of 1. Same thing in B. I go to color code. I only have one absolute value, so this isn't very hard. And I just have to substitute things in when x is 2. So in B, my one absolute value, I plug in 2, so I'm going to have -2. When plugging in a number, again, it's good to put it in brackets, -2 squared, and then we have -3 times 2, and finally -4. And order of operations, 2 squared is 4 times a -3, that'll be -8. -3 times 2 is -6, -4, -8 minus 6, -14 minus 4, -18. And once you have a single number, make it positive. Our final answer in part B is 18. So a couple things with absolute values. As far as order of operations go, they act like brackets. You have to do what's inside of them first until you get a single number. Then you can take away the absolute value bars. If you take away the absolute value bars earlier than that, it's going to cause problems. Secondly, like we saw in example A, make sure you know where one absolute value bar starts and where it ends, because they look the same. So I like to color code them. So I thought of this. Green ones, I did inside of that till I got a single number. Purple ones, inside of that till I got a single number. When you evaluate the absolute value, which means make it positive, put it in brackets. Because I've seen students, here I'll go red again, from this step they write, without brackets, they're this. This is wrong. See what I did? I changed the -6 to +6, but without putting it in brackets, I lost the multiplication. And so easy to make little mistakes that way. Questions to practice to see, and make sure you're checking your answers on these, are 12, 13, and 14.